During his first term, President Donald Trump threatened the Russian leader Putin that he would bomb Moscow if Russia attacked Ukraine, and warned the head of the People's Republic of China, Xi Jinping, that he would strike Beijing if the People's Republic of China started the war with Taiwan. This became known from a recording of a private conversation between Donald Trump and his donors, which took place on the eve of the last presidential election in the United States. At that time, Donald Trump was talking about his threats to Putin and Xi Jinping, emphasizing that this was an effective way to deter the Russian and Chinese leaders. Putin expressed doubts about my intentions, but I got the impression that he wasn't convinced I wouldn't carry out my threats. And Xi Jinping might have just decided that I was crazy. Donald Trump boasted to donors. Well, if this particular conversation between Donald Trump and his influential donors truly reflects the American president's fundamental idea of precisely how foreign policy should be thoughtfully conducted, then we can also clearly see the inherent logic in Trump's confident words that if he were indeed the president of the United States of America, the devastating Russian-Ukrainian war would most certainly not have happened at all. Trump may believe that he effectively intimidated Putin and presented him with a choice: either refrain from acting against Ukraine through aggression and military intervention, or risk American bombing of the Russian capital or other cities and military facilities of the Russian Federation. Trump was convinced that even if Putin did not believe these threats, he at least began to consider them as a real possibility. And that alone should have deterred the Russian dictator from attacking our country. But when Donald Trump was replaced by Joseph Biden as president of the United States, Putin believed he was dealing with a classic traditional politician who would not risk a nuclear war with Russia in order to stop Russian aggression against Ukraine. But we all understand perfectly well that such a reality exists only in Donald Trump's own mind. We do not know how seriously Putin takes Trump's threats, or whether he truly believes that the American president is actually ready to strike Moscow. After all, let's not forget that we are talking about an attack on the capital of a nuclear power, which in turn could strike Washington, New York, and other American cities and the military targets of the enemy state. And in this way, we would find ourselves in a real nuclear war involving the use of strategic nuclear weapons. A war, the possibility of which I have been talking about literally since February 2022, as an absolutely realistic turn of events in the event that Western countries fail to quickly stop Russian aggression against Ukraine. We can say that they have already failed, and now we are already seeing how the escalation is increasing and how the quality of weaponry in the Russian-Ukrainian war is changing, creating entirely new possibilities for the destruction of military targets and people in the very near future. We will all see this for ourselves. Thus, it is possible that even without the use of nuclear strikes, catastrophes may occur that will lead to the deaths of tens of millions of people in the coming decade of this turbulent 21st century. But of course, right now, it is worth thinking not so much about the inevitable development of military technologies, as about what Donald Trump will do today, now that it has become clear that he is offended by Russian President Putin and realizes that Putin is deliberately humiliating him. Trump emphasized that ending the Russian-Ukrainian war after it has already started is much harder than preventing it in the first place. And is logic in this statement by the American president. Indeed, preventing a war, provided of course that responsible and reasonable politicians are involved, is much easier than getting out of a war when it is already in full swing. That is why Trump tried to force the Russian president to at least agree to a ceasefire on the Russian-Ukrainian front in order to draw Putin into a lengthy process aimed at ending the war itself. However, Putin clearly understood that this was a real political trap, which would deprive him in the future of the opportunity to achieve his ambitious goal, the destruction of Ukrainian statehood and the annexation of the neighboring countries' territories to the Russian Federation. This is what Putin, despite what is happening on the front lines, continues to hope for and considers his main objective in the confrontation with Ukraine. But now, when it is clear that Trump has failed to convince Putin, and Putin himself, in fact, used this idea to drag Ukraine and the West into a negotiation process amid brutal military actions against Ukraine and increased shelling of Ukrainian territory to demoralize Ukrainian society and convince it of the need to capitulate to Russia. Now, Trump will have to think about how to force Putin to cease fire on the Russian-Ukrainian front, not through persuasion, not through phone conversations, but through rather tough measures against the interests of the Russian Federation itself. Then we will really be able to understand what Trump is willing to do to prove to Putin that he is not to be trifled with. And now it's not just the problem of Ukraine is first and foremost a problem for Trump himself, because it is absolutely clear that if he fails to convince Putin that he is a tough leader who is ready to take unconventional steps to rein in those who do not listen to him, then the president of the Russian Federation and most importantly, the head of the People's Republic of China will not take either Trump himself or his threats seriously at all. And this means that after the war on Ukrainian territory, which could very realistically be joined by other conflicts in the post-Soviet space, as well as in Central Europe and the Baltics, the most dangerous war for the United States, the war over Taiwan, could also break out. In that case, American troops would have to be directly involved, not just providing assistance to resist aggression. And here too, Trump risks triggering a third world war involving nuclear weapons, but this time not against the Russian Federation, but against the People's Republic of China. And I do not rule out that Russia and China might act together in this major catastrophic war against the United States and other NATO member countries. This will be the main historical event of the 21st century. And of course, we don't even know if there will be a 22nd century at all. So now Trump will have to prove his toughness and show that he should not be underestimated through well thought out, serious and effective actions against the aggressive Russian Federation and its self-assured, cynical president. How successful the American leader will be in this and how much it will affect the further course of the Russian-Ukrainian war, we will understand in the coming weeks, months and years. Thank you, friends. Stay on this channel, subscribe, follow me on social networks, Patreon, Buy Me a Coffee, and Donatel, which support this project. Use sponsorship features here on YouTube. Wishing you victory and peace. Good luck.